literally in the middle of the bush. The road is not really passable. We've walked probably about a kilometre into the bush looking for the cemetery, and we finally found it. And this is Graytown. And what is significant about Graytown is, unlike Steglitz, which features in one of my other videos and is a gold mining town, classic example of boom and bust. At Steglitz, there's quite a lot left. There are residences, there are shops, it's a great courthouse. Here at Graytown, there's nothing. There is just bush, and there's a few more modern residences and occupied out on the main road. There's just the cemetery and a whole lot of mullock heaps. So as we walk in, we had a mullock heap and filled in the mine shaft. We'll walk in and I'll tell you about Graytown. So what's amazing about Graytown is that at its peak, it had 30,000 occupants. And in 1878, when gold was discovered, there was an influx. It depleted nearby Ballarat and Rushworth, and always sad that many of the Chinese miners lie in unmarked graves. And so the influx of miners depleted Ballarat, Rushworth, and we end up with a town that rivaled the population of Goulburn or Devonport or Bacchus Marsh in Victoria, or if you're in New Zealand, Blenheim or Taupo. So, Chinese grave. Who died in 1869, and his name was Ah Feng. Ah being a honorific, sort of a mister, and he lies here. To continue my narrative about Graytown, Graytown was named after Wilson Gray, who later became a judge in New Zealand, and we're 120 kilometres north of Melbourne on the road between Heathcote and Nagambie. It's formerly known as Spring Creek and was surveyed in 1848. Gold was discovered in 1868, and at the height of the gold rush, Graytown was compared to Ballarat. In 1871, there were 511 buildings in the town, and now there are none. The alluvial gold was quickly exhausted, and by the late 1870s, the population had declined to only about 150 people. And the death knell came in 1870 when a flood swamped the mining structures and numerous buildings were destroyed, and many of the buildings were moved elsewhere and the people departed. As we look around, most of the graves are unmarked. Just a handful of them, maybe a dozen or so here. It's noteworthy that they talk about larrikinism on the goldfields and illegal mining encroached on the edges of the cemetery because the leads, gold-bearing leads, extended under the cemetery, and the surroundings of the cemetery were actually reduced to compensate for the illegal mining, and therefore several of the graves actually sit outside the current boundary of the cemetery. I will say those graves here that do remain are very ornate, and I wonder if that's indicative of money earned on the goldfields. Look at the carving there, and it's very touching that even the supposedly unmarked graves are marked here with a simple cross and a peg with a cross on it. And if you look through here, several of them little Frank and Maggie. I wonder what their story was. And this is a touching one. Look at that. All but returned to nature. Another one here. Jane, niece Alice, and husband Hiram. We managed to live for another 30 years. Elizabeth Ann. And as noted in my recent Steglitz video, the average life expectancy for somebody in 1870 was just 38 years. So to live to 60 or 70 or 80 was indeed an achievement. A lot of Welsh miners brought their expertise out here. I like the quote there in Welsh. Biblical quote. Very, very, that would have to be about one of the largest gravestones I've seen in a long time. That's huge. Never seen another cemetery that has these simple little markers. Art O'Sullivan and his wife Catherine. And Patrick Dunley, unfortunately, has a tree in the way. And just the remains. With no grave markers left. Now, looking at the little information kiosk here at the cemetery, we see some really interesting and some heartbreaking stories. There's a list of the deaths. And I would point out 3 months old, congenital syphilis, 17 months chickenpox. Twins here, both died 3 days apart, congenital syphilis. 5-year-old, orange pip and trachea, choked. Quite a few falling branch, drowned. James Reeve, killed in a gold mine fall of earth. Suicide by cutting own throat. Alan Thomas, shanty keeper, willfully murdered, throat cut. Quite a few drowning whilst bathing in waterhole. Typhoid, tuberculosis, typhoid. So obviously in 1870 there was an outbreak of typhoid. Premature birth. Robert Lindsay died of sunstroke in January, the heat of summer. Whooping cough, whooping cough, whooping cough, whooping cough, whooping cough. 1873, obviously, and they were aged 10 months, 2 months, 3 months, 3 months, 16 months. Very, very sad.